Hi, this is Alan Douches from West Side Music, and you're geeking out with Gear Gods. Hi, this is Alan Douches from West Side Music, and we're here talking with Gear Gods, learning all about mastering. Well, I think it's changed a lot. Historically speaking, it was kind of the last production stage before the manufacturing stage. But because so many people can go directly to a distribution stage now, directly from their DAW, mastering seems to be coming into its new age or something, where it's like we're like the last stop and last opportunity to have a new, fresh perspective on the music and try to tie things together. You know, lots of times when you're mixing the record, you're hyper concentrating on that song, and you may be a couple of days down the road. Total Recall is kind of helping that you can always go back to that first song, and you know, even though you're on the fifth song or something. But it's also about that fresh perspective and having the objectivity of saying, all right, stop looking at, you know, the hi-hat track and start thinking about what everybody's going to be hearing. There's also an important part of it that's about archival and making sure that you have the masters preserved in the highest possible quality for the future. Because although we might be releasing it now and streaming as MP3s or maybe 1644 digital audio, down the future as bandwidth gets better, we'll want to listen to 9624 or have the option of listening to higher resolution formats. So it's about storing the master at the best possible format and then being able to export it down for the various formats that are being distributed now, and then hoping that in the future where it's going to stand up with quality. Well, I think a big part of mastering is listening in a control room, in a room where you know what it sounds like. So by listening to thousands and thousands of records in the same room, you know, the mastering engineer has a really good sense of, yeah, this is what it's supposed to sound like. So I think it's mostly with that repeated listening in the same environment, you know, where you can tell, you know, maybe you can't hear the difference of that half a dB, but you can sense it and you can feel it because, oh, no, this sounds a little bit edgier than what I want it to sound like. A sense of objectivity, really, and also understanding the genres. You know, we talked earlier about, you know, the fact that we do a lot of heavy music, you know, and so because we're in touch with a lot of the product that's coming out now, we kind of know what a lot of the big mixing guys are mixing towards and what they're trying to make things sound like. So understanding and being a part of the scene and you know, being in touch and talking with the producers and the mixers, that's a big part of it. What are they trying to achieve out of it? It's not just it should really never be my vision. It's really the production team's vision that we're trying to capture the most. Yeah, analog recordings, I guess, there often isn't a middle ground in the analog world. Either somebody's recording to an analog format as a mixdown because they think it's cool and they really shouldn't have done that, or that their mixdown environment is so well, you know, prepared that the half-inch mixdown is probably exactly what they want. And so therefore the mastering challenge is to try to deliver that exact product. So it's a little bit harder coming from analog because we also don't have the option of, you know, being able to alter sections as easily as we do when it's coming from a digital format. From a digital format, we can take a section of a song and just put an EQ on that section and then, you know, do another section with a completely different thing and change the EQ, change the compression. From analog, I'd have to say that most of the time, the guys that are mixing to analog still are really loving the way their whole mix sounds, and they're storing it on that high resolution format for posterity. And also, we're going to try and preserve as much of that as possible. Well, a lot of the times I do actually hear the mixes in their early stages. A lot of the producers will send me a mix as they're setting up their initial settings. And, you know, just to get a bounce off of me as to what I might be thinking, what I might want to be doing, so that we're kind of working a little closer as a team. Also, a lot of the bands that I'm working with, I've done multiple albums for. So I kind of know their history, and sometimes I'll talk to them beforehand and just say, hey, listen, what are we trying to get on this particular project, you know? Yeah, I mean, you know, it's, you know, part of it is, though, listening cold and listening as if you were the audience and saying, you know, hey, I haven't heard this record yet. What does it sound like? Not having known it, is it a triggered drum? You know, are these reamped guitars or anything? It's more just like, okay, does it sound real? Does it sound like what the production team was looking for? I don't know. Sometimes I view them as a challenge, so I don't know that I think of them as hard. Certainly, they're, you know, Jane Doe, as a reference, was a difficult mastering session, mostly because at the time, the tools to get records loud really weren't as easily available. So we had to do a lot to try to make that record have the impact that they wanted. You know, I think you just got to make it sound as great as possible. Don't necessarily try to make it as loud as possible, but try to make it as great as possible with as little help from stereo 2-bus compression, stereo EQ. You know, you've got all the tracks available to you. So if you're winding up putting, you know, a lot of compression on your master bus or a limiter on your master bus to make yourself happy with the mix, chances are there's something else in the mix that could be wrong. And so you should probably be able to pull off, you know, a stereo EQ if you have that on, or a stereo compressor, and the mix shouldn't fall apart. If the mix suddenly falls apart, then you should probably go back to the mix and rearrange some things so that if you pull the compressor off, you go, oh, all right, that's more dynamic. You know, we want it to have a little bit thicker sound, and we want a little, you know, less dynamic range, a little punchier sound, so the compressor is doing that. But when you pull that compressor off, it shouldn't just disappear. You know, we have a lot of great compression options here that we don't often get a chance to use because the mixes come in too compressed. Also, save your mixes without compression, with and without compression, with and without EQ, just in case you get to the mastering session, or if the mastering engineer wants to try something and that your EQ or your compression might be hindering from them doing. I think that's a wise choice. If you wanted to try to be a mastering engineer, you should probably go to work, or, you know, go and intern or assist at a mastering studio, because chances are you're not going to have the room, the sound, the control room, that's going to have the sonic ability to allow you to get the right start. You know, you've got to be able to hear what you know, a relatively neutral sounding room sounds like. There's a lot of room correction software and things like that, and that can get you know, a flat frequency response in one spot in the room, but it doesn't always work for the dynamics of it. If you turn it up or you turn it down, that frequency response can often change. So I'd probably say, try, you know, get a job, find who masters a lot of your favorite records. You know, give them a call, say, hey, can I intern with you a little? You know, see what it's like. You know, I have an interest in this. Schools are really great at this. I didn't think so years ago, but I'm seeing a lot of better schooling come about, and you know, I lecture at a couple of them, and I think we're getting some good kids coming out of the schools nowadays too. Wow. Okay. Well, you know, I guess historically speaking, Bob Ludwig has led the way. More because of his approach to mastering and his ability to have the best gear. So I'm fond of that, although I think, you know, he's probably, you know, done his fair amount of records and is now ready to pass the torch along. I also love Greg Calby. I think Greg's had a great career and has had a really great touch. Ted Jensen, again, you know, his discography is awesome. I think anybody that's been at it for, you know, 10 or 20 years has probably been able to amass enough of a discography that you could say, wow, they're doing really great work, because you're not going to get the repeat work if you're not able to keep making the production team happy. It's the room. The room is the most important piece of equipment, because, you know, although we don't use plugins in the terms of what most people think of plugins as, you could in the right room. You know, it just the choice of the gear that you use is really dependent upon your own personal favorite and how you like to work with things. But without the room, the gear does nothing. So I could take this equipment and I'll put it in a different room, and I'm clueless. So it's without a doubt the first thing is the room. I guess the second thing is really it's actually a combination of pieces. It's really having the best of the digital world for the surgical kind of work. So something like the Weiss EQ, the dynamic EQ, is essential in getting that to sound, to correct for things, linear phase or dynamic. Having those tools are just awesome. On the analog side of things, it's just having some great compression. Digital EQ can kind of go a long way, and you can kind of make that work. But I don't know, in the world of compression, there's just nothing like high voltage and passing analog through it. It's got a sound. It compresses it, yet makes it more dynamic. The Pendulum Audio, the Eclair Engineering stuff, it's just awesome stuff. I hope that was informative for you guys. Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, you can go to our website, westwestsidemusic.com, and check our email address there and send me any questions. Love to help you out. We're always interested in finding great new bands and sometimes even trying to turn them on to labels if that's the case.